Good evening. I always feel like a news broadcaster when I announce this. It is February 1st. It is the end of dry January for some. It is for me. So I have had a celebratory glass of wine. I am going to be speaking with a very, very, very exciting guest this evening. I'm very happy to have Eliza from Cheer Up Luv on with us. This is episode 3 of season 2 of Money Mama Talks. I want to do a couple of announcements before I let Eliza join us here. We are starting to do merch, which is very, very exciting. I need to figure out how it all works with the website and linking all of my things, but the goal is to get merch going and to donate a big percentage of profits to different charities and organizations. So we are super excited to get that going. If you have any suggestions of places where we can donate to, I think we're going to switch it up every month. So this month being Black History Month, obviously I'm very interested in supporting Black sex workers. Any ideas that you have, I'm super interested to hear. So feel free to drop me a line, and I'll give you more information about that soon. So without further ado, I will bring our guest on for tonight's show. And hopefully this works smoothly. Let's see. I feel so rosy. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, it did work completely smoothly.
Hi, how's it going?
So good. It's going great. I'm feeling good about January being over. I feel like
Same.
January is the longest month of the year.
I know. It didn't feel like it was going to end. Yeah, I can't tell you how happy I am. It's February.
Truly, same. Did you do any sort of dry January deal?
Absolutely not. Maybe the opposite.
Maybe the opposite. Yeah, I did. I tried. I'm not gonna lie. I failed a little bit in January, but I did last a solid 3 weeks. And then the last week of January, I was a bit here. It was a bit touch
Yeah,
and go.
yeah, yeah. Things have been pretty touch and go, like in the UK in January. So yeah, I needed a vice. Otherwise, it was just going to be a bit bleak. But yeah, here we are.
Here you are. And are you in London, or where are you located?
Yeah, so I'm based in London at the moment.
Based in
I
London.
Yeah, I used to live in New York, but I moved back here because of the pandemic. So,
Cool. I actually did the same. I lived here. I'm from California. I lived
mhm.
here for 5 years. I moved to LA, and then because of the pandemic, I came back in March last year. So, but before we get too much into conversation, can you please introduce yourself, your name, and every possible way that you identify?
Yeah, sure. So, my name is Eliza Hatch. I'm a photographer, activist, speaker, and founder of Cheer Up Luv, which is a photojournalism series dedicated to retelling stories of sexual harassment through photography. And this is done by revisiting the place that happened and using the location as a stage to reclaim the space and reclaim the experience and turn a negative situation into something positive. I started it in 2017 and it's been going for nearly 4 years now and has expanded into a podcast and workshops and lots of other things. So yeah.
That's incredible. I'm such a fan. I really am so appreciative of people spreading these kinds of stories and giving platforms for people to speak about it because, I think that sexual harassment is it's so rampant across so many aspects of life that
Mhm.
it doesn't get addressed enough, and we are we as women identifying people, we're meant to internalize it very often.
Mhm.
Can you tell me the story of how you first started it? Was it
Mhm.
based on your own experience? What
Yeah.
made you start this idea?
Yeah, so a whole bunch of things. I mean, it definitely kind of came from my personal experiences that I had, but it was sparked in particular by a conversation that I had with some of my friends. And it was after a man walked past me in the street and told me to cheer up. And I'd heard this phrase so many different times in my life, whether it was, cheer up, or you'd look so much better if you smiled, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like all of these different iterations of that phrase. And it had always bothered me, but I'd never really known why. I'd never really challenged it before. And so I spoke to some of my female friends at the time and said, do you ever get this phrase like said to you, like why is this a thing that men say to women? Like, I just don't understand it. And then this sparked a huge conversation of sexual harassment, story swapping. We were talking about all of our experiences that we had in public. Like, it was the most normal thing in the world, getting beeped at by cars, being felt up in clubs, being stared at or followed home, and all of this stuff that we just kind of took for granted as a normal part of growing up.
Yeah.
And so nothing about this conversation that I was having with my friends really shocked me until my male friends interjected into the conversation with their disbelief and horror and dismissal of our experiences, saying like, we must be overreacting and being oversensitive, and that these were just misguided compliments and attempts of flattery. And they just basically didn't have a clue that these things were happening as frequently as we were saying they were, because they just had been, the perpetrators themselves, or seen it happening, or heard many experiences from the women or non-binary people in their life. So it was after this conversation that something kind of switched in me, and I was like, okay, well, there's this complete disparity of what I've been experiencing since about 13 years old, and what my male friends have just completely blinkered to. So I wanted to start something to initially just raise awareness about the fact that this was something which was happening pretty much constantly and just wasn't really being spoken about. And I started it, as I said, in 2017, like in January of the year. So it was before the Me Too movement happened and before the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke. And so it obviously, there had been conversations around it before, but it just wasn't really in the mainstream, and it wasn't really something that was getting the kind of attention that it deserved. So I started taking photographs of my friends in public places, in the place that they experienced sexual harassment. So whether that's like a train station or a bus stop, or like a particular street or something, and then kind of use that location as like the setting for the photograph. And then I started just posting everything on Instagram, like a couple months after I started initially taking the photos. And I only really posted everything on Instagram just as like, I wanted there like to be a kind of record of the photos I was taking. I didn't really think it was going to become anything.
Turn into anything.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to become anything at all. I just wanted to, put them somewhere. I wanted to create like a gallery almost of these stories that I was collecting. But yeah, little did I know that anyone would want to come forward and share their own experience after seeing the initial post that I had posted. And yeah, it all just kind of like snowballed from that point onwards.
And when did it become a full-on its own Instagram and kind of separate itself just from you doing a project?
It was kind of a gradual process. I mean, I started posting everything like in March of 2017 on like Cheer Up Luv. I created the Instagram account then, and I created a website. But it wasn't really until later that year, I think maybe like when the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke and stuff, that it really began to pick up a bit of pace and get a lot of media interest, and started to become more of a like concentrated campaign that had more aims than just raising awareness. I wanted to reach more people and go to speak to people in different countries and collect as many experiences and stories that I could. And yeah, it became more about just educating my like cis straight male friends. It became about, like wanting to create a place where people could find solidarity in other people's stories and feel inspired to speak out.
Yeah, that is so important. And I really felt affected too by the Me Too movement. I actually used to work in advertising And well, I wanted to work in journalism. I dreamt of being a vice journalist and host and, you know, doing the cool rogue documentaries that they were first popular for doing. And then very quickly, in my career, I realized that the way things are set up, it's actually kind of all a big machine to just feed advertisers with eyeballs. And I was like, oh, actually, that's not what I want to do at all. Like, I don't want to just make content so that we can get eyeballs on it, so that we can get advertisers on it. So the Me Too movement was a big a change for me as well, where I shifted to camming and stripping and this whole space. And activism was a big draw for me as well. And so I'm interested in the other aspects of activism that you work with and that you are interested in working more with.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole thing it's been like a real learning curve for me completely. I mean, my background is not in activism at all, or, you know, politics or campaigning or anything, you know. So I went to art school and I was working in the film and TV industry doing set design and art department stuff before I got into any of this. Even, you know, photography. Like, photography was always a hobby for me. It was never something that I thought I could do professionally at all. It was just all of the things that I do now, like campaigning and activism and, you know, talking about like gender equality and all of this kind of stuff. It's stuff that I have just been learning on the go. It's not anything that I had any kind of knowledge or intellectual authority on before doing what I was doing, apart from just the lived experience.
Right. You kind of just fall into it. Like, you're like, I believe in something, I guess I'm an activist now.
Yeah, it's been like a huge journey of imposter syndrome. And, you know, I didn't even call myself a photographer for like the first year of doing the campaign, because I was like, what? No, like, that's not me. I didn't train in that. But, you know, people give you labels and then you grow into them, I suppose. And it's been a huge journey of learning about the things that I'm passionate about, of questioning the things that I'm interested in, and questioning the injustices that I see happening around me. And all of it's been a total learning process. And that it's been, you know, over the past 2 years, making my campaign more intersectional, more diverse, more inclusive, just broadening the areas of interest and the topics that I cover and the things that I engage with on my platform. I mean, it has changed so much since I first started doing it. And all of that's just because of, I suppose, the communities and the conversations that I'm interacting with and seeing online that I just wasn't really exposed to before, especially when I was just coming out of university. I think I only got Instagram like in my last year of university, or when I left university. So it's a like completely different world, to be honest, being able to
honestly, it's crazy.
In this way.
It is so different. And how has so obviously you're not really are you doing a lot of street photography right now, or you guys have been on lockdown? I mean, London has been pretty serious lockdown, right? Like, you guys can't even go to the park. I feel so blessed in Copenhagen for our version of lockdown. But so how has the project changed based on COVID?
Yeah, it's been like a horrendous roller coaster, to be honest, being in the UK at the moment, because it's just been lockdown, not lockdown, lockdown. And the whole thing's been an absolute mess. So the way I've worked has really changed recently. I'm not doing any street photography at the moment because we're all locked in our houses. So my campaign has moved online, and I do all of my shoots on FaceTime now, which is great.
Cool.
Because I've never worked in this way before until last year, like in the first lockdown. And then I saw some people doing FaceTime shoots, and I was like, what is this? This is cool. Like, how does this work?
How does it work?
Well, it's actually pretty easy.
Okay.
You just need to have like the latest update on an iPhone, or use the Zoom app if you have like an Android phone or something. And then if you're using FaceTime, you give an iPhone, there's a button you can press which takes a picture from the other person's camera. So if you just like put the camera up somewhere,
so it's actually it's not like your Canon or your DSLR taking a picture of the phone. You're actually taking a picture from their phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the quality is a lot better than just like screenshotting or something, but you are still taking a photo on an iPhone or just on somebody's phone. So basically, I mean, I have a lot of fun with it actually. It's quite a process. You do have to do a lot of like, you know, shifting millimeters to the left and to the right.
It sounds really difficult,
getting someone to like hold the phone, and then location scouting like through someone's phone and being like, can you show me your garden, like like show me an interesting wall or something. And then I mean, I really enjoy it. It's been a liberating way to work. It's been really amazing because, you know, yes, the pandemic has limited most of the work that I can do and most of the face-to-face work that I'm able to do, but it's also opened up, you know, I can do a photo shoot with anyone in the world now. And like before the pandemic, the way I worked was like pretty rigid. I was really kind of set in my ways about doing all of my photographs like, you know, on film and in person, and I would never really post something on my feed that wasn't like, you know, a perfect manicured edited photograph the way I wanted it. And now I'm just like, whatever, I don't care.
The stories just need to be told, right? And when did you start doing the podcast? Was that also a Corona development, or was that you were already doing that before?
Yeah, no, definitely a COVID development. I wanted to do a podcast for like a year now, at least, maybe more than a year. Definitely since 2019, I've been thinking about doing a podcast, but I never really had the courage or the push, or I was never really forced to do it. I could always distract myself with something else and be like, you know, there'll be another time when I'm unemployed and don't have any work,
where you can really dive into a podcast.
I mean, with all of these things, it seems like I really need to be pushed to the point where there's no other option for me to do something, whether that's in, you know, podcasting, broadcasting, taking photos. But, you know, in a way, it's good to be kind of pushed out of your comfort zone. And
definitely,
I didn't know how to make a podcast before making a podcast. And turns out it's manageable with loads of free time.
So is it just basically the same concept as the photo series, just in speaking? So people telling their stories about sexual harassment, or?
So it's done through story submissions. I basically, the premise of the podcast is I interview a series of artists, activists, and creatives about their work in like a quite casual, conversational way. And then towards the end of the episode, we read out a submission story of sexual harassment, which is sent in anonymously or not by a member of the Cheer Up Luv community. And this story will either like have a link to the person that I'm interviewing. So for instance, I interviewed Gina Martin, who is an activist who changed the law on upskirting, on one of my episodes, and one of the stories we read out at the end was a story submitted by someone who had been a victim of upskirting, which is when, if anyone doesn't know, it's when someone takes a photo of another person's skirt without their consent in a public place. And then, we would like myth bust and just discuss the story and discuss kind of common misconceptions about sexual assault and sexual harassment, and basically just bust some of those myths that are that need to be dispelled.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think are some, I don't know, solutions to because there has to be some kind of root issue with the way people are brought up or the way society views certain people. What are some active solutions that you are working towards or have thought of with your co-activists and podcast guests? What do you think we can do about this?
Well, there's so many things. I mean, there's like destigmatizing the conversation around sexual assault. There's, taking away the blame and the victim blaming aspect of sexual harassment. There's changing the narrative on how we perceive victims of sexual assault and rape and harassment, like dispelling just the most common myths of, like, what you wear doesn't shouldn't equate to what you experience, should equate to how you are treated. Like, even things like that, which are, you think in today's world, like, we've got past the point where your choice of underwear dictates how people see your choices and how, but we just haven't.
No. Yeah.
There are still cases where people are convicted of their own rape because of a choice of clothing that they were wearing. And so it's all about, it's all about changing those narratives that are, like, quite deeply embedded into society. And all of that just needs to start. It's just conversation that needs to happen from, like, a super young age. And, like, yes, we can, raise awareness, and we can share infographics on Instagram and stuff, but it's just as important, to do all of those things as it is to have a, deep, meaningful conversation with some of your close friends. Have a conversation with your brother, have a conversation with your dad, like, call something out which you think is inappropriate, maybe, that you see on the street. Like, be an active bystander. There's so many different things that you can do, big or small. You can start a campaign and try to introduce an educational segment into your school, or you can just maybe question something you see happen on a night out, or just, like, ask if someone's okay and if they need assistance. Like, there's a huge range of things that you can do to combat the issue of harassment and how it's normalized in society.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I believe 100% in everything that you're saying. And I just have one more question that we will end on, since we are called Money Mama Talks. I would like to ask about monetization or side hustles, or how you've been keeping afloat during this time. I think we're all finding new ways to make money, whether it's online, or if our jobs let us work remote, or starting podcasts and things like that. So if you feel comfortable, I would love to hear how you have or plan to monetize this project, or in general, what you have been hustling with during this.
Yeah, sure. It's a really good question, because, as many people know, like, activism doesn't pay, or it doesn't pay very well. It's been a real hustle over the years, to be honest, to get to a place where I can even understand what I can and can't charge for, and just my time in general, and all of these things, because there's no guidebook on it. Like, no one ever sits you down and says, like, this is how much you should charge to do a talk, or your time is money, and all of this stuff. Because I'm just like, at the beginning, I was just happy to be in the room, or just happy to be, anywhere where someone wanted to, do something with me. I was just like, yeah, sure. You want me to take some photos? Great. So I did a lot of free work in the beginning, but because that's kind of just what you're expected to do, and it's kind of just what you have to do to get by. But now, there's a lot of hustles going on behind the scenes.
Let's hear them.
So I do public speaking a lot to substitute my, like, activism work with Cheer Up Luv. I give talks in schools, in universities, in workplaces. I run, like, workshops, interactive workshops and panels, and most of those have gone online now because of the pandemic, obviously. And, like, a year ago, I was, touring universities and giving talks about my work, but obviously, like, none of that's happened anymore. So right at the beginning of the pandemic, I was asked to give lots of talks about certain things, and I think a lot of people think that because you're doing something on Zoom, it doesn't count, like, it's not real, so they shouldn't pay you. And so there was a lot of that at the beginning of the pandemic, and I had to really fight my corner to be like, no, this is work. This is how I make my living. So I do that. And then I started doing a bit more, like, social media based work and, like, paid promotions and stuff. I don't really do that because I haven't really done that in the past, because I don't know, like, opportunities haven't really come there, or they hadn't really, like, aligned with
what
I'm doing or what I wanted to do, and kind of taken me some time to think about to think about that, and to think about if I wanted to work with different brands and all of that sort of stuff. But I do take on, like, a select amount of, paid partnerships and stuff with social
Yeah.
media, but that's definitely not like the bulk of my income. That's
No, I mean, if it makes sense, it makes sense. I think people
Mhm.
want to like really vilify sponsored stuff, but half
Yeah,
the time a sponsored post is like you just got a thing for free and you're only
yeah,
promoting it because you believe in it. At least for me, it's very rare that I actually get money. So yeah,
yeah, totally. And I think there needs to be like less shame around doing that kind of stuff, especially if you're like an activist and you're doing other stuff and you just, it's just not really obvious that you're getting a huge amount of income maybe from like what you're usually doing, and especially in a pandemic. And I do see, certain activists or influencers getting like a lot of stick from their followers saying like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this paid promotion. I'm like,
it's like
she's just trying to get paid. Like,
just needs to eat just like anybody else. Yeah.
just needs to
And
get paid. Yeah. So I'm a lot less fussy about that stuff now. I'm kind of just like, I used to have my walls and up a bit about that stuff, but now I'm just like, whatever. I'm kind of, as long as it's not totally unethical,
right. Yeah,
then
exactly.
I had no judgment about that, and I'm pretty open. I'm pretty open to it. And then lastly, the podcast. So I monetized my podcast from my current season. It wasn't monetized for season one because I was just, I didn't know what I was doing, but it's been a learning curve, as I said. But I got a sponsor for season two, so that's been a huge relief. They've been amazing. So yeah, hopefully I'll continue that for my next season.
Congratulations. Cool. This is your time to shamelessly plug any and everything that you want. So where can we find you and what do you have coming up?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at Eliza Hatch and at Cheer Up Luv, spelt Luv. And also you can listen to the Cheer Up Luv podcast, which is on Apple, Spotify, Anchor, like everywhere. And then, yeah, if you want to submit a story to the campaign, you can do so at cheerupluv.com or DM us at cheerupluv. We're always accepting submissions at the moment. And I'm actually looking for stories at the moment for a campaign in London. So if you're in London and you have an experience of sexual harassment, I'm looking for some submissions. So yeah, I think that's everything. Yeah.
That's the gambit. Okay, thank you so much, Eliza. It was really a pleasure to speak with you. I'm going to be uploading this everywhere that I possibly can. And I will be submitting, I think, my own submissions. I want to get on Cheer Up Luv.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much. Okay, have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.